cases going on all the time, so each one has a fleet of its own lawyers and they subcontract. There's a whole culture of regulatory lawyers that, who are great people, by the way, come to really respect law in this because of how well this kind of negotiation ends up working. But it is cumbersome and, as you can imagine, slow moving. So I was going to move from presenting the idea of a smart grid. We should look at it for something like Buckman and push on our utilities to say, we're willing to innovate. We might get with you and try and build a large water tank on the Upper East Side, put it uphill so it's going to feed gravity back and give us maybe some energy, but at least feed our water system because we've pumped with wind. But the second thing is taking that technology, putting that out there in the innovation, allowing more distributed energy systems to come on. And this is where I have a meeting of the minds with all the solar advocates, and there's something called combined heat and power, where we can have littler, smaller energy systems that generate both heat and electricity, kind of a little steam turbine. So we're not just throwing away the heat off of the plants like we do with San Juan and Four Corners. So all that steam rising up those big chimneys is just heat going to waste. Something like at least half of the energy is just going away as steam. So the smarter our grid is, the flexible and more innovative and all the things that go with our advanced technology age, the more it can handle lots of little systems that people can start experimenting. Your system here at ecoversity might ultimately be able to feed into the grid. You're currently getting your photovoltaics fed into the grid through a system that they can handle a few of these. It's when we start talking about thousands of them, they're starting to get worried that this little, not only do they, if they start to depend on it, they want to make sure you're going to maintain your grid so it's feeding electricity when we need it. But they also don't want some kid to walk along and snip the wires and cause some kind of short circuit that sends a spike into the grid that today's grid might not handle very well. But a smarter, self-healing, all the language that's used around networks can apply to the grid, but we just aren't doing it yet because of basically the inertia that's in the current system. So let me just, I'll itemize. If I round numbers say that we have I'll start with just saying that we're going to take 5 units offline over the next 10 years, those coal units I mentioned. So every 2 years we're going to shut down 300 megawatts. I think we can spend the first 2 years doing amazing amounts of energy efficiency. I'm a huge fan of Amory Lovins at the Rocky Mountain Institute, who has, as an engineer, and can document that we could have this quality of life with basically 1/4 the amount of energy we currently use. That's how much waste there is in the system. So, but I'll be conservative and just say we could go to half as much energy. If we valued it, and even if it costs twice as much, there's a funny complexity, our bill would still be the same. But getting to that place where people will pay twice as much, even though they're only using half as much, so twice as much per unit, per kilowatt hour, they're using half as much, so the bill stays at $50 a month. That's really hard, because everybody wants, if they're using less, they should be paying less. It's sort of our psyche, and we've got to do a lot about the valuing the electricity. But also explaining to all our friends and neighbors that these energy increases can be offset by these inefficiencies, and people are seeing that with the compact fluorescents. I mean, even in my own home, having gone down to, I basically live a normal life, I think. I don't run a TV perhaps, but we're generally under 250 kilowatt hours a month. Another piece of the smart grid is having that readout in your home so you know what's using electricity. There's a phenomenon you've probably all heard of with the Prius drivers, and they have a little digital readout on their meter. And so there's this competition, it's on the internet, about how many miles per gallon you can get with your Prius, because you have instantaneous feedback. And information like that is invaluable to changing behavior. Consumers need to know. Today, you really don't know. You get a bill, do you look at the number of kilowatt hours, the little bar graphs, maybe. But mostly you just pay the bill, and you're disconnected from the use of the electricity. And so it's been interesting. Another test in Arizona, actually, was in giving customers a prepaid electricity card. You plugged into one of these meters and turned your meter on and off. And if you only wanted to spend $30 a month, charge your, just like a phone card, charge it up for 30 bucks, you could see it going down. You can start making decisions. Maybe today I won't run my air conditioner. Now this starts to verge on, are we asking people to sacrifice, which is always considered a no-no. But at least you're giving them real information, and they can make decisions. And that kind of empowerment, I think, it ultimately overrides the idea that you're asking them to, now they're making their own decision, as opposed to sort of passively getting this enormous bill and saying, what did I do? What can I do? Again, though, that's change. It's been hard to try and place that out there in general circulation because, it raises all sorts of issues with the electric grid. I think, in fact, Jeff just showed me, I'd never seen a bill from PNM that shows when you get the PV credits. I've been meaning to ask friends who have them, and it's kind of fun to see money coming back. And you probably start to watch that. How much can I get, right? You try and minimize your use and maximize the amount that you're selling into the utility. I wanted, I think, to just emphasize one more piece about innovation, and figuring this, I should have prefaced it by saying, this is the piece I don't have the answer for. How do we change this human psyche and this opportunity? Some of it is market. I said with cars, price has been the signal. Sometimes it's brutal, but it's clearly the most effective mechanism. And folks we know and talk to a lot, we can be as idealistic as we want. A few percentage of us are going to voluntarily go out and stick on the photovoltaics, go through all that trouble. If we actually became dependent on it, we're going through some hardship. Most people we talk to, they don't want to know. They don't want a unit in their garage or have to deal with these things. There seems to be some receptivity to the idea that if we had electric cars and they're plugged into this smart grid and they charge when the wind blows, that also works. That idea, that'd be okay, although we're not, we think people will plug in. It seems, initial sort of discussions, it seems easier than having to go and fill it up with gas every few days, so it shouldn't be too hard. Something that's almost automatic when you drive it up your driveway. But the other piece that gives me hope, and I think in the work we all do in advocacy and trying to change it, we do have to wake up every morning and feel hopeful. And one new rag that I've sort of picked up I've been in this new position for almost a year now. I said I had this background in the solar research, but I hadn't followed it intimately for at least 5 years. So over the last few months, I started reading again a trade rag called Solar Industry, which is story after story of all the innovation happening. Thin film photovoltaics, the investment, a factory here going online too in Albuquerque to produce photovoltaics. They're all being sold to Germany, but factories all over the country starting to break down. In Europe, in Malaysia, the price of silicon, so the silicon supply coming down because the market is finally responding so quickly. And the stories in here are all about innovation and technology. And so I think when Al Gore talks about, he says, I believe it, I've been to all these labs, and you don't know whether Al Gore is a politician. What's he really know about what's going on inside these labs? And we're looking at this gizmo in the back of the room thinking, does this really work, or is somebody pulling the wool over our eyes? But I can speak from some technical experience in this field, and just as Al Gore said, maybe only 10%, maybe less, will actually work. But there are so many ideas happening and being funded. Yes, more needs to be done, but the energy, no pun intended, in this industry, solar, wind, the technologies around smart grid is phenomenal. And I really do have hope that we can overcome that other piece of just getting out of our comfort zone and asking for change, not discomfort, just asking for change and telling the powers that be in the utility industry that we want that. I think we can really get there. And I do think we don't want to go to a completely anarchist system where everybody just separates, puts their own photovoltaic up in their battery, because the natural monopoly is also compatible with the idea that we are sharing If I have 2 kilowatts of photovoltaics or a little generator and you do, sometimes I need 4 kilowatts. I need it to run my power tools.